The Newport Tower is a round stone tower located in Touro Park in Newport, Rhode Island, the remains of a windmill built in the mid-17th century. The tower has received attention due to speculation that it is actually several centuries older and would thus represent evidence of pre-Columbian trans-oceanic contact. Carbon dating shows this belief to be incorrect. Description: The Newport Tower is located in Touro Park, at the top of Mill Street, surrounded by a historical residential neighborhood on the hill above the waterfront tourist district. 18th-century paintings show that the hill itself once furnished a view of the harbor and would have been visible to passing mariners in Narragansett Bay, but recent tree growth now obscures the view. The Newport Tower is not exactly circular. From southeast to northwest the diameter reportedly measures 22 feet 2 inches, but when measured from east to west, the diameter lengthens to 23 feet 3 inches. However, the 19th-century measurements of the interior gave an east-west dimension of 18 feet 4 inches, which was slightly shorter than the north-south measurement of 19 feet 9 inches, suggesting that the discrepancies may be due to the unevenness of the rubble masonry. The tower has a height of 28 feet and an exterior width of 24 feet. At one time the sides were coated with a smooth coating of white plaster, the remains of which can still be seen clinging to the outer walls. It is supported by 8 cylindrical columns that form stone arches, 2 of which are slightly broader than the other 6. Above the arches and inside the tower is evidence of a floor that once supported an interior chamber. The walls are approximately 3 feet thick, and the diameter of the inner chamber is approximately 18 feet. The chamber has 4 windows on what used to be the main floor, and 3 very small ones at the upper level. Almost opposite the west window is a fireplace backed with grey stone and flanked by nooks. A representation of the tower is featured prominently on the seal and unit patch of the former U.S. Navy vessel, USS Newport. In a document of 1741 the tower is described as the Old Stone Mill. In 1760 the tower was used as a hymo, while in 1767 it was described as having been used as a powder store some time past. DeBar's plan of Newport, published in 1776, marks it as stone windmill. During the American Revolution, the tower was used by the Americans as a lookout, and by the British to store munitions. A painting, attributed to Gilbert Stuart, of the tower circa 1777 that shows the tower roof has long since disappeared. Construction: The tower is located at the upper end of the plot behind the now demolished mansion built by Benedict Arnold, the first colonial governor of Rhode Island, who moved from Pawtuxet to Newport in 1651. In 1677 Arnold mentions my stone-built windmill in his will. The site for his then new burying ground, which survives to this day, is between this mill and his mansion. The phrase has therefore generally been accepted as referring to the Newport Tower, and is evidence the tower was once used as a windmill. An illustration from the British Penny magazine, published in 1836, revealed to the Americans that the tower is of a similar type to Chesterton Windmill, a 17th-century mill near Chesterton, Warwickshire, England. The notion that Arnold was born in Leamington, Warwickshire, only a short distance from Chesterton, is mistaken. The family lived near Lymington in Somerset, about 100 miles away. However, Chesterton Windmill stands on a ridge within half a mile of one of the main southwest-northeast roads of early modern Britain, which also runs past Lymington, and it is entirely plausible that Arnold, or another colonist in a position to influence the design of his stone-built windmill, would have seen it. One such candidate is George Lawton, who was born in 1607 about 30 kilometers from Chesterton and is thought to have built several mills in the area. Georg Lawton's mill is mentioned in a 1668 document as being on the current Newport Mill Street. Various authors have suggested that comparable medieval buildings can be found in Europe. In particular the Orphea Round Church on Orkney built in Scotland around 1115 and the round churches on the Danish island of Bonham such as Sturlas Church dating from around 1160. Scientific investigations 1848 mortar comparison In 1848, the Reverend Dr. Jackson of Newport collected samples of mortar from the mill and some of the oldest known structures in the town, including the very early Bull House, the Eastern House, other houses, and the tombs of Governor Arnold and his wife. Under detailed examination, all proved to be of very similar composition, composed of shell lime, sand, and gravel. 1948 excavation The city of Newport gave permission for a scientific investigation of the site by the Society for American Archaeology in 1948. The investigation was directed by Hugh Henkin of Harvard University, with the field work headed by William S. Godfrey. As part of the investigation, a 1-meter-wide trench was dug from the tower's exterior through the interior. The results, published in Godfrey's 1951 PhD dissertation, concluded that all the artifacts discovered were from the 17th century. Godfrey's dissertation identifies Benedict Arnold as the builder of the tower, stating that Arnold purchased some of his Newport property, specifically the section on which he later built his house and the stone mill, the year before he moved. At some period before 1677 Arnold built the old stone mill. Godfrey initially dismissed the Chesterton Mill theory, claiming that on the other hand, there is very little probability that Benedict built his tower as a mill. The tower mill form, as contrasted to the smock, post and composite forms, was not common in England until the beginning of the 18th century. Godfrey posited the hypothesis that the tower was built as a comfortable retreat and lookout for a very rich and very autocratic old man. However, he later retreated from this position, noting in 1954 that Rex Wales, noted English expert on windmills, has supported the contention that both structures were built as mills. It has since been shown that tower mills were known in England from the late 13th century and that they became increasingly common from the late 16th century onwards. Subsequent research has determined that Chesterton was, in fact, built as a windmill in 1632 March, as the original building accounts, including payments for sailcloths, having been traced since Wales' death in 1986. There are also several surviving 17th-century stone tower mills in North America, which are similar in appearance to European examples of the same period and Moulin de Vincelot, Quebec. 1993 Carbon-14 dating In 1993, radiocarbon dating tests of the tower's mortar were undertaken by a team of researchers from Denmark and Finland. The results suggest a probable date of construction between 1635 and 1698. In a 2003 report on this and related work, Hale, al. put the date of the tower at about 1680. Alternative hypotheses. Norse In 1837 the Danish archaeologist Carl Christian Rafn in his book Antiquitates Americana, partly based on his research of the inscriptions on the Dighton Rock near the mouth of the Taunton River, proposed a Viking origin for the tower. This hypothesis is predicated on the uncertainty of the southward extent of the early Norse explorations of North America, particularly in regard to the actual location of Vinland. Rafn's popularization of the theory led to a flurry of interest and proofs of Norse settlement in the area. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow incorporated the Norse origin view of the tower into his poem The Skeleton in Armor. Philip Ainsworth Means, an archaeologist whose speciality was Latin America, attempted to compile all known evidence surrounding the tower to date in his 1942 book Newport Tower. As a supporter of the Norse hypothesis, Means dismissed the idea that Arnold built the tower from the ground up. Means claimed the tower was a church built between the 11th and 14th centuries, citing many architectural features obsolete by the 17th century. Since then much of Means' evidence has been shown to be mistaken. Means' assertion that a windmill would not have fireplaces because of the fire risk is incorrect. Several have fireplaces aligned with windows and it is not unusual to find a double flue exiting out of the wall, generally with the exits aligned parallel to the prevailing wind to improve the updraft on a relatively short flue, and the doors and windows are aligned to the cardinal points of the compass. Or Much Wenlock Windmill, Shropshire, which has double flues of uncertain purpose rising from the middle floor level. A conventional chimney could not be used as it would foul the turning cap and sails of the windmill. Observatory hypothesis 4 of the 8 supporting pillars of the tower face the main points of the compass. In the 1990s, William Penhallow, an astronomer at the University of Rhode Island, studied the windows in the tower and said that he found a number of astronomical alignments. At the summer solstice, the setting sun should shine through the west window onto a niche in the inner wall, next to the south window. Similarly, the angle from the east window through the west window is about 18 degrees south of west, which is the southern extreme of moonsets during what is known as the lunar minor standstill. The smaller windows also form alignments on significant stars. These alignments could be accidental, but if they were deliberate it would explain why the pattern of windows seems, according to Penhallow, so odd. Chinese equals, the author Gavin Menzies argues in 1421, the year China discovered America, that the tower was built by a colony of Chinese sailors and concubines from the junks of Zhenghe's voyages, either as a lighthouse, or, based on Penhallow's findings, as an observatory to determine the longitude of the colony. Menzies claimed that the tower closely matches designs used in Chinese observatories and lighthouses elsewhere. However, these claims have been debunked. Portuguese equals, during the early 20th century, Edmund B. Delabar associated the Dighton Rock with the lost Portuguese navigators Miguel Corte Real and his brother Gaspar. This Portuguese hypothesis has been supported more recently by Manuel Luciano da Silva, who suggests that one of the Corte Real brothers built the Newport Tower as a watchtower. The idea of Portuguese construction of the tower was also supported by former U.S. Ambassador Herbert Pell, who in 1948 argued that the tower resembles elements of the convent of Tomar in Portugal. Medieval Templars the prolific British writer Andrew Sinclair has put forth the hypothesis that the Newport Tower was built by medieval Scottish Templars led by the Scottish Earl Henry Sinclair, as part of an alleged voyage to New England about 100 years before Columbus. Sinclair's alleged voyage to America has been vigorously disputed. See also, oldest buildings in the United States, Albinus Hasselgren, Stafford Hill Memorial, a replica of the tower in Cheshire, Massachusetts. References. External links, Redwood Library site on Newport Tower, the Newport Tower and the Plowden Petition article from Skeptical Intelligencer, 1, List of windmills in Rhode Island.